And so I heard about Flutter, and I just said, you know what, Flutter is just another one of the things, just similar to React Native, similar to PhoneGap, some of these other ones, right? And so I took the time. I bought a book from Pragmatic Programmers, and I went through it, and I saw some videos, and I said, wow, this is really great. This is fantastic. And actually playing with it some more, and we actually got about two projects in about the time. One for an existing client of ours, and one for another company that we worked with directly. And yeah, we basically were picking up Flutter as we're creating these apps. And of course, you know, with any kind of technology, the first time you use it won't be so great. But as you're using it, as you're really learning and as you're digging in more, you start to realize, okay, this is how things work. This is how it goes. Okay, not too bad. But I have to say that React is definitely the first UI, I would say, the first UI kind of framework, and that includes HTML with CSS, where I could actually feel like I could build anything I want. Anything. I mean, I could just take a look at a design and say, wow, look at this thing. That's just, you know, a container over here, put it over here, you put another box over here, you put a stack on this that goes like this. And just now I can just take a look at something and I can just say, okay, I can create this and I'm not afraid to do it. Now, the other thing that kind of worries people, and worried me, of course, too, is what if Apple or Google or both came out with something brand new that I wanted to use? And I couldn't because it's part of a newest SDK. I have to wait for somebody else to create the plugin. Well, there's two things to say to this. One is that the plugin ecosystem for Flutter is really, really fantastic. It keeps expanding, and it's really great. I just take a look for it for yourself, and you'll find out. But the other thing too is that creating your own plugin, writing native code, is very straightforward. One of the projects I also had to work on with this other company that I talked about a little bit earlier is that they asked my company, they asked us, me in particular, to help them to make a Flutter plugin, which will allow us to directly talk to the SDK. So we're working with this robot. I won't say the name of the robot. And it had a particular SDK because, of course, it's a robot. It has to be able to do certain functions. And I managed myself, well, of course, with some help from the other guy, but mostly myself to create the plugin from scratch and write the native code. I used Kotlin because it was an Android running kind of robot and hook up to the SDK. And it was very straightforward. It was very easy. And I've also taken plugins from other people and contributed back to them and sent it back. And it's been very simple and very easy for me. I'm quite amazed. I feel like Flutter is just a very thin layer above the native code that you write right now. And also, like I said before about performance of like React Native apps or Ionic apps, Flutter does compile to native code. So it is super fast. It's crazy fast, right? It's about 60 frames per second running on the device. I mean, it's really amazing what you can do, right? And so after playing with the stuff for at least 4 to 6 months, I would say, yeah, I was pretty much sold. Except for certain websites, I am very much considering to use Flutter for other projects and using other websites. The cross-platform part, like I started talking about with iOS and Android, that actually extends even bigger now that web is now production. And I can also say that we also delivered a a Windows app. We actually developed the entire Windows app using Mac. So we just took Mac. We just been running the native app on our own Mac machines using the Mac and of course everything. And it just worked. And we just exported it. We wrapped it up in a setup installer and we exported it, gave it to the client. I have to admit the first time it didn't really work on some machines, but that's because of just some language issues. But once we solved that, but in any case, some people did have English machines. And so on those machines that we were testing everything on, we ran the app and it just worked immediately. It was just great, fantastic. And so I'm pretty much sold that for basically UI facing things that really need to be very beautiful and very amazing and work great, we're probably going to be looking at Flutter as a first choice, even for some websites. So that's kind of my history and where I came from and my thought process when it came to looking at and using Flutter.